All right, welcome back to the Vault Report. I'm here with George Mason head coach Tony Skinn. Back at it, summer workouts. How we feeling, coach? You got your starting five?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're trying to get there, man. We're trying to get there. We just finished week one last week, and obviously we had a workout yesterday, but we've got for the most part, we've got our group of guys here. We still have one or two bodies that won't be with us until the end of the summer, but for the most part, we've got a large group of our guys here. We're getting after it this time of the year, but definitely no starting five in mind.
Absolutely. Everyone's happy now. That's good, coach. Everyone's happy.
Yeah.
What was the second go around for you as a head coach? Obviously, last year, you didn't have as much time, coming in, being hired a little later, but just kind of this second year, your approach, did it change at all this time around?
Yeah, I think it was for me, just for one, understanding this league a little bit. Last 2 years as an assistant, I spent in the Big Ten at Maryland and at Ohio State, and so you've got to be able to transition to a place where you know the league and you can kind of just adjust your parameter of what can help you win a championship in this league. And I think after year one, getting a chance to kind of see what it takes against some of these really, really good coaches in this league and really, really good players, having, a better foundation. And I wouldn't say better, last year when I took the job, Ronnie Polite and Malik Henry were really the only two guys we had that returned that played significant minutes. And really it was just Ronnie. Malik played very limited minutes. And so it was basically starting from scratch, being a first time head coach with all the different things and moving parts. I would say that last year was definitely a tall task. It was a little bit smoother this year, and as you know as well too, you kind of know what you need long before the season is over, and your recruiting, kind of begins. Not when the portal necessarily ends, and so it was a little bit smoother. It helps when you have guys like Darius Maddox, who I think is one of the better players in this league, an elite shooter. Veteran guys like Woody Newton, Jared Billups, guys that are seasoned vets and kind of understand what the expectation is. Having that type of a foundation, it helped us a lot with our navigation in the portal. And I'm really happy with, kind of where we landed.
Definitely. And I was gonna, wanted to talk about retention. Obviously, I want to talk about the transfers as well. And like you said, I'm sure, with kind of starting from scratch last season to be able to have a 20-win season, is, I've talked about it at length, is extremely impressive. But, obviously retention can be difficult in today's landscape. You guys lost a lot of guys, not unique to you guys at all. But as you mentioned, you do have, two returning starters, your second leading scorer, as you mentioned, but just how important are they to obviously what you're trying to do? And like you said, how you're able to attack the portal with those guys already locked in.
Yeah, I think, I can say now because we do have a full roster. We have some bodies that, for the most part were our core guys last year. And I think those guys deserve a lot of credit because, especially in this landscape of college ball, staying the course isn't really, it's not really the thing, right? You're worth a lot more in transition than you are at home in the portal. And so having those guys, it makes my job a lot easier because we do have a foundation. But then also navigating through what we kind of needed, what we lost. We had very little time to put this thing together last year, and we were able to win some games. We had some lessons, some hard lessons that we learned in conference games, but especially with 2 points or less, I'm trying not to think about that in June. But it's part of it as a head coach, it's part of it as a staff and a program. And to get to 20 wins in year one, I think for me it gives me the confidence and just kind of knowing the possibility that we have right now with a team that I think is a lot tougher, a team that's a little bit more athletic than last year. And I think honestly, a team that's a little bit more that understands to be a little bit more for each other. When you put a group of guys together, everyone's still kind of learning what the expectation is, still kind of learning how to win at a high level. Everyone's coming from different places and bringing things that, necessarily might not fit with what the expectation is here at George Mason. But having a year under our belt with a couple more bodies that understand that and integrating that with the new guys, I really do think that we're going to have a good season this year. I'm excited. I'm trying not to get too excited, but I really like the team we put together.
And I want to talk about the portal additions kind of as a whole. I do want to ask. I've asked this to all the coaches, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it at all. But as you talk about obviously the portals, which we will, which has become obviously a big part of college basketball. I feel like the whole idea of unwritten rules, right? Even ethics, unwritten rules, all of that. Is there any such thing, and how does that affect you or as a staff, what you do? Because it's hard when it's the wild, wild west, right? I mean, I've talked to many coaches. It's hard. It's like, what do you stick to ethically, unwritten rules? Do they exist? Just that going into this offseason.
Yeah, I know for me, from a personal standpoint, retention is always to me the most important thing. We're in the landscape now where you have to recruit your guys, and you hear coaches say it all the time. You got to re-recruit your guys. You have to recruit guys that, obviously are about the right stuff. And sometimes guys that are about the right stuff don't necessarily mean that, those are your most productive guys. Doesn't mean that's the guy that's averaging 15 and 7 for you. But enough guys that kind of understand what the expectation in that locker room is, what the expectation of, our culture. I say it all the time. I'm gonna win some games. I'm gonna lose some games. I have to be able to do it with guys that at the end of the day are coachable. And so, not to dance around your question, for me, the biggest piece is retention and keeping your guys that you have here. It's a lot easier to recruit those guys than it is to recruit guys that are now in the portal that have all sorts of different variables that they're expecting and that they're looking for. And to be completely honest with you, it's not an easy process. I know every coach in America went through it, and I think you really saw it at its head this past off season. Different guys are jumping in the portal for different reasons. And for me personally, I love the fact that these guys are getting NIL, they're getting opportunities. Everybody needs money, right? And so I'm not against that. I had a chance to be a starting point guard in the Final Four in 2006, and guess what? If I had an extra year and the portal existed back then, I probably would have jumped in the portal as well. But, I think for us, the biggest thing is just understanding that there's a delicate balance of guys that, have earned the right to be in that conversation. But guys that understand that basketball is also important. The basketball piece is important. You're talking 20, 21-year-olds who, you want to be able to play for the next 10, 11, 12 years. But if you make a decision solely on a certain amount of money, it could be your last check. And so for me, and going into the portal, we try to find as many guys as possible that understood that. And if you look at our roster, we had a chance to get at some guys that I think really could have went and played anywhere for probably a lot more money, but they understand that at the end of the day, basketball is the most important piece. And when you're talking about being productive, having a chance to be on the floor, those are non-negotiable things. And I don't think that in this landscape, it's always the top of, kind of the top of the list on what's important. So
Yeah.
hopefully that was a loaded answer, man.
Well, it was a loaded question after you said how excited you are. You're finally done. You got a full roster, so you put that on me. That's my fault. I mean, and like I said, it is what it is. But those transfers I do want to get to, like you said, who are bought in, who believe in kind of you guys as a staff, your development, what you've done historically, what you're able to do last year. I think early on, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have Giovanni, Siena, Jeremiah coming in from Iona, Katie Johnson, Auburn, and then O'Connor, UMass Lowell. I think those are kind of your four, but guys that have had experience, like you said, had the opportunities to go a lot of places. Just what do you see overall kind of with that group and what you're excited about?
Yeah, let's not forget Zach Anderson.
And Zach Anderson, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, again, those guys, I mean, you literally went down the list of guys that I think could have won and played anywhere. I think those guys looked at, the production. We lost a major part of our production with the different guys that went on to, obviously different places and professionally and other institutions. We try to lock in on guys that understand how important their role is. A guy like, we take an example, a guy like Zach Anderson, who's got, 1 year left to play. He could have went anywhere. You're talking about a guy that shot, I mean, he shot a crazy percentage from three, a guy that can make shots, a guy that can keep the game simple for you, but also understands, the we over me. He's going to be a huge part of what we do. And Big Gio, I mean, if you watch Gio on tape, the minute that I saw him, it was a no-brainer for me. Obviously, Gio's also Nigerian, and so those are the guys that I like to coach. He's been phenomenal. Just a guy that, I mean, you watch him in a workout, and it's almost like you have to slow him down. Having someone that's 6'10", 6'11", that's as athletic as he is, as tough as he is in that front line, and comparing it to just kind of how our front line was last year, it's gonna be a nightmare for our opponents this upcoming season. And I'm excited about him. And then Jeremiah Quigley, a local guy from the DMV who had a great freshman year, a guy that I think is going to always be a guy. Anytime he touches the floor, he's going to be playing with a certain sense of a chip on his shoulder. Those are the type of guys that I think produce in this program and in our style of play. And then Braden O'Connor, who obviously played at UMass. I always say it wrong. It's UMass
Oh,
Lowell.
yeah.
Yeah, Coach Lou gets on me about it all the time because I still haven't figured out how to correctly say that. Um, let's take that one off a record if we can. But
Oh, no, it's all right. Hey, it gets confused. UMass Amherst is leaving the A10 anyways. It's all, don't, and it's not on you.
yeah, so Braden O'Connor, coach was excited about him when he heard that he, was potentially jumping in the portal. And so far he's been, you're talking about a guy that's 6'3", can shoot it, can defend. He wants to do all the little stuff that guys don't want to do. He's so hard on himself. I'm already coaching him in June to just relax and not tell everybody when he makes a mistake. Don't remind him because of, your reaction, because he's hard on himself. And so he's been phenomenal. And then Katie Johnson, you're talking about a guy that he started, 70 plus games in the SEC at a high level, was on that Auburn team that, practically were the best team in America 2 years ago. A guy that you love when he's on your side, you hate it when he's not. And he's been phenomenal. And so for me, it's been a collection of guys that I think understand how tough they have to be, how hard they have to play, and how committed they have to be. And those three things for me, just getting a glimpse of that in June, I'm excited.
No, and again, I could go deep into. We'll go deeper, obviously. Come October, you're in the beginning stages. Last question for me because I do appreciate the time. Let you go. Non-conference schedule. What's that looking like for you guys? I don't know. I know obviously one of the big announcements. I believe it was Duke, right? You guys will be playing Duke. But how's that coming together? As you
Yeah,
guys.
we're it's again, it's still in the works. We live in that bubble here in the A10 where it's so hard to get the gains we want to get,
Yeah.
because of how competitive this league is, because of how respected it is. And so non-conference wise, with the exception of Duke, which we were able to get, it's still kind of in the works. I'd say we're probably another 2 or 3 weeks away from kind of finalizing a couple more games. We obviously return Tulane. They come back to us. We went down there last year. We've got to go to East Carolina this year, and so we've got a couple more games that we're working on right now as far as non-conference is concerned. But I'm happy about where we are and where the conversations are going. I think this team is good enough to compete with anybody in the country. And having a game like Duke on our schedule, what better way to show that than going down there to Carolina?
Sounds good, Coach. Like I said, I appreciate the time. Enjoy summer. Hopefully, you get a little bit of rest. I know recruiting never ends, but hopefully, there's a little downtime with that. But I appreciate it as always.
No, absolutely, man. I appreciate you. Always good to be on here, man. Thanks for the invite.